sturdy engine hoist. So for those of you that don't know what's going on here, this is a 440 and a 727 and all of the parts that go with it. The plan is to put it into this Dodge pickup I got here. You have to bear with me too, I've been sick. I don't know what's wrong, but I've been really sick. That's why I've been behind on videos too, but just work with me and we'll try to get through this as best we can. Basically, I'm taking the 318 and the 727 automatic out of this truck and putting this 440 and 727 in it. It's been a plan of mine for a while. I know I mentioned before that I was going to do it over at my dad's place, which is where the engine was, but being sick and that's just not really practical, so hauled it over here to my place, and I wanted a reason to actually do something here in my shop too. It gave me an excuse to clean it up some. Not perfect, but definitely a lot better. But anyway, we'll get this unloaded. We'll start tearing into the truck. And I'll kind of explain why I'm doing this. And there's kind of a story here with this engine too, which I'll explain also. Son of a bitch, not gonna roll down at all. It's on fucking concrete. Had to use the old winter grip bias plies to haul this thing on, which I actually still use these tires. Work great. Gotta have a coffee can full of nuts and bolts. good when there's a fucking big block Chrysler on there. Alright fellas, so I'm going to start off by saying I know this is probably not the truck you guys want to see me work on, but it is necessary. This is the daily driver. I depend on this truck, I need this truck. This truck is the reason that like all of these vehicles that I've filmed have gotten here. This is what I use to pull trailers with, it's what I drive. I need it. And it's just as much a part of all of this as any of the other old cars. I know it's a lot newer. It's the newest truck I've ever owned. So it's a lot newer than anything else that I would normally be filming on here, but like I say, I need it. I feel like you kind of got to give credit where credit is due. I've used the hell out of it. I've put 30,000 miles on it in the last year, and I've converted it from TBI to carbureted. That's about all I've done, and I put brakes on it. I've had to fix other little stuff along the way, which you'll see, I'll show you, has been fixed, not properly, but it's been more, I've had to fix a lot of stuff on the side of the road, if you know what I mean. And that's become permanent fixes, which I don't like. So this is a chance to kind of go through it and change some things. And of course I'm changing the motor and transmission. The old 727 in this is starting to slip real bad and have some issues. And the 318's wore out. It's underpowered for what I want to use it for. I mean, this is my trailer puller. And I know, well, why would you want a half ton to pull a trailer? Well, this truck came from the factory. I guess they had overloads put on it, and it's got a heavy duty 9 1/4 rear end. It's geared a little bit lower than most of the half tons were. So it's more like a heavy half ton. It's a D150. But I don't know, it pulls trailers really well. I like it, I need it. So I was going to just put a different 318 in it, and decided not to do that because my dad asked me, well, now this is what we've got under the hood. Just a stock 89 318 that was TBI. Now there's a couple things, there's two things I really don't trust in life, okay? One of them being computers, and another one of them being electric fuel pumps. Well, this truck had both. It still has an electric fuel pump. That's how, so you guys know, in '88 when Dodge went TBI, they did away with the spot in the block to put a mechanical pump. So I mean, I guess you could pull the timing cover and you could put the lobe on the end of the cam and whatever to be able to run an electric fuel pump, which I trust more. I do not trust electric pumps at all. I'd rather have a mechanical one. But right now it's rocking the factory style electric pump, and then it's run down to a regulator because it's only TBI is what, like 10 or 15 psi is what these need, and I ran that regulator to drop it down to 7 or whatever for the carb. But it's killed 2 fuel pumps and stranded me twice. I don't trust electric pumps. I want a mechanical pump. I want one right there on the side of the block that I can get to and change on the side of the road if I need it. I do not like having to drop a 30-gallon tank that's always full when the fuel pump dies. Probably gonna have to do it one more time though, because the engine I'm putting in here has a mechanical pump and it's going to use a mechanical pump, and I don't know if it'll pull through that electric one in the tank. It might. I might not have to drop that. And anyway, another issue with this truck I don't like, down in there in the fender wells, big electronic computer that controlled everything and told it when to run and whatever, and just stuff I don't like, I don't trust, it's outdated. So This thing also got a points distributor, which, you know, at the time was fine, but it's hard to buy anything that's quality nowadays. Everything you buy is just garbage, it seems like. So I've had a bunch of issues with it, and just on and on and on. I've had all kinds of problems with it. Wore out 318, 727 starting to slip. So anyway, all this is going on. Now, to start another story, 3.5 years ago, I bought a yellow long bed 85 Dodge. Had a 440 in it. Mild built 440, nothing crazy, but it ran pretty good in that little half ton. I ended up wrecking the truck, probably totaled it. It still ran and drove, but it was pretty tore up. And my dad ended up buying a short bed at 84 that had a slant 6 and automatic in it, which is what I put in that old truck I got out there, which you've seen. And he ended up buying the yellow one from me to use the cab and the 440 and the transmission and some other stuff. And he's been building that, but then he's recently decided he wanted to go a different route with it. So basically he asked me if I wanted the rebuilt 440. Sure, yeah, I'll take it back. So we're going from a 318, stock 318, to a mild built 440 in this truck. Basically, that's the whole story. Sorry to talk so much, but I kind of want you fellas to know what's going on, why I'm doing this. But yeah, let's see what all's involved. I know it's gonna be a lot of fun, especially since I'm sick. And so a lot of this might end up becoming a voiceover, because I know I sound horrible. Alright, start with the basics. Get the battery out of here. At least get it disconnected. Drain the fluids. Drain the radiator. I'm gonna have to pull the rad. My goal would be tonight is to get this 318 and 727 out of here. Maybe tomorrow I can get the 440 set in here at least. I know it's not gonna be done this weekend. There's some stuff I've got to order. For example, when you go from a small block to a big block in these trucks, you have to change to a smaller diameter brake booster, which I don't have. I need to order one. I think it's for like a 78 W250 or something is the right size booster. I'm going to need to clear the big block valve covers. There we go, got the rad draining. So now it's a matter of just disconnecting a whole bunch of stuff here on the top end. There's silicone in the radiator. Okay. Thought I'd show you some of the custom wiring we've had to fix on the side of the highway on this truck. Like one of these is the electric fuel pump. One of them's the distributor. And then of course too, 88 had a different kind of alternator, which is controlled by the computer brain or whatever, somehow, I guess, I don't know. Had to convert it to the old style. I had to put in one of these old style voltage regulators and wire it up to make it work. And bear in mind, when all this stuff failed, when I had to convert this from throttle body to carb, that was last winter in the coldest week of the year. It was with the wind chills. It was in like the minus 20s. It was that cold, and I did most of this outside, so that's why a lot of it's not perfect. It was a nightmare. Rad out and some other little stuff. Gonna go ahead and pull the hood, give me more room and a little bit better light there under the engine bay. I knew I was gonna need to pull it anyway, so might as well do it now. So whenever you're pulling hoods, I always like to go ahead and kind of use a Sharpie or a paint pen and mark where the bolts were on the hinges, and you can even kind of mark where the hinges were, just so you know you can put it right back where it was and you don't have to fight with adjusting it too much. You know, that way normally you can put it right back where it was. You don't have to fight the hood adjustment. And another thing to look for, if you got one of these fancy little underhood lights, make sure it's disconnected before you rip the hood off of there. can see a whole lot better what's going on. I guess next I want to get power steering and all that, all the pulleys and stuff off the front of this. That'll give me room to come forward. I get the fan off, all these crazy wild brackets and whatever. I'm gonna be reusing that power steering pump too, so hopefully it will bolt onto the big block. We will see. Man, check out this fan clutch. If I hold the water pump still, look how easy this fan clutch will spin. I'd say that probably was no good. I mean, the truck never got hot, but if it had air conditioning or something, it probably would have. Alright, that'll give me some more room. Yeah, that water pump I'd say was about toast. Second off to the side there. With the other heater hose. The heat worked great in this truck. Something I like about these Dodges, it seems like they got good heat. Those over there together. Pull this mess of fuel lines off. Ooh, that's an important one. Vacuum line for the heater control. Probably gonna have to reuse these plug wires. They're brand new, and I ought to be able to use them on that other engine. I'm just gonna pull this whole cap and stuff out of here so I can get more room. Make a separate pile over here for all the 318 stuff. Carb, let's see, throttle, linkage. Oh yeah. This truck uses a new style throttle linkage. All that old, this kick down, all that shit's gonna go away. I guess I could just leave the carb and everything on there, whatever. I probably ought to order a new one anyway, or a different one. That one there was kind of, had some issues. Be better to run a Holly or something anyway. Okay. Boy, I'm bleeding all over the place. All those bolts go into water jackets on a Dodge. Should get the drain pan under them. I swear, I feel like these vehicles in the 80s had the wildest brackets set up. Just way over complicated everything having to do with a power steering pump bracket or an alternator or whatever. Just insane. Make a huge mess on the floor. There we go, the power steering pump is free. You know, I don't think it matters how long you drain the radiator or whatever. No matter what, The only way to get all the water out of the blocks for one of these is like, I don't know. I don't think you can. So, as far as fuel lines go, one of them should be, one is fuel, one's returned, and one's some kind of evap line or something. I just cut them. We're probably not going to run a return with this. You don't need a return on a carb system, but Dodge ran one anyway. Well, okay, yeah, they did. This wasn't carbed, but even on the carbed ones, they did. We shouldn't need a return. Probably not going to run one anyway, so that doesn't matter. I just cut the lines. You can see everything's disconnected here off the front. The only thing that might be an issue, the transmission coolant. Well, they shouldn't be because they're tied along the block or along the pan, so they should lift out with the engine and trans. I need to get the throttle linkage disconnected, which it's bolted down there to the bottom of the intake below the carb. So I might just pull the carb off to be able to get to it easier. And the motor mounts, and I think that's it up here. I've already disconnected some of the wiring, which I just cut. Like this went to key on power for the voltage regulator, whatever. The other one there went from the coil to the distributor, which that's all going to change. I'm going to rewire. That's all stuff that I wired in, and I'm going to fix it and do a little bit better job once we set the 440 in here. My goal is just to get this 318 out quick and get the 440 set in here, and then I can really take my time and do a decent job. So that's why I'm kind of rushing through getting this 318 out. Throttle linkage is undone, carbs off. Went ahead and unbolted the motor mounts, which those are just each a 3/4 inch nut on each side. I just unbolted the alternator with all of its wiring and threw it off to the side. What's probably going to happen is it's going to get the, do I have one over here? The old style, yeah, the old style Chrysler alternator instead of that new style one. So I just kind of wanted to leave that there so I could figure out how the wiring is going to go. Next thing, oh, there was a stud back there in the back that held a ground strap and some other wiring. I just had to pull that out. I think this is everything on the top end now. So next we'll crawl under there. Got exhaust, shift linkage, tranny mount, and drive shaft, and then we should be ready to yank this thing out of here. Alright, so now we've turned our attention to what's underneath. Got the transmission crossmember mount right there. I've got the shift linkage, which is up there. Should be able to pop out one part of it, and then there's a bracket with 2 bolts going to the frame that needs to be unbolted up in there. Yeah, right there. And that reminds me I need to pull the starter wiring too. And I gotta cut the exhaust. None of that's gonna be used. I went ahead and unplugged the, oh, there was some plug on the end of the transmission, probably had to do with the computer or something, and the neutral safety switch. I unplugged that. Gotta get the speedometer cable off. But yeah, making some good headway for sure. So you can see transmission cross members loose. That was those 4 studs there on the mount. The speedometer cable, it's loose. Pretty self-explanatory, it just unscrews. And then of course there's the shift linkage there, which once I unbolted the 2 bolts on the bracket go through the frame, it pretty much just falls off. And of course you gotta, there's some rubber bushings you gotta pull out, and whatever, just pops apart. I also pulled that, I don't know what that is there, some kind of, maybe, I don't know, supposed to help with vibration or something, off the end of the tail shaft. So all that leaves now is I need to saw the exhaust off, disconnect the wires going to the starter, and pull the drive shaft. Okay, drive shaft is out. Next thing, I've got a spare yoke here. I'm just gonna stick that in the tail shaft of this transmission to try to alleviate it from dumping all the fluid everywhere, or to try to prevent it from dumping the fluid everywhere. Once I pull this motor and transmission I also mentioned that this truck has the largest fuel tank in it. I think you could order in one of these. I'm reminded that every time I squeeze under the damn thing. Well, I swear, sometimes it's the simplest stuff that puts a stop to everything. I don't have any good hacksaw blades. Well, I can't get in there with my hacksaw anyway. And I don't have any metal Sawzall blades. So, I'm gonna try to use the angle grinder to cut the exhaust. Probably get killed, but, you know, give it a try. Alright, fine. Guess I'll run to town and get Sawzall blades. Okay, the exhaust is down. I've got to cut that stupid mount there, but there we go. There's 2 studs and 2 cables that run to the starter. They're studded. I don't know, one's like a 7/16 or 1/2 inch or something, and one's like a 5/16. Pretty easy. And then should be able to pull this out. Hopefully. At least we'll figure out everything else that's still connected once we, you know, start pulling it out. Things are looking serious now. I got a chain on the top end bolted to the motor, getting the hoist positioned, and on the underside I went ahead and threw a jack and a block under the transmission pan so that way I was able to get that mount free. You can see the studs are now above the transmission cross member. So we should be ready to see what happens when we lift up on this. So this is where you find out everything that's still connected, and everything's just going to fall and it's going to be a giant mess. But hopefully we can pull out fairly easily. There we go. Gonna give her the old pull and pray method. Let's take a look at the underside. See if maybe we're hung up on the cross member. Oh yeah, we are. The jack's let down. No wonder we can't get her forward. Bring her down some. We went too far. There, now we're off that. Should be able to go back to the truck some. That pulley might have to come off there so I can, it'll let the motor angle, it'll nose up a little bit more. It's hitting the hoist there. If I take that off, the nose should come up a little bit more because that's what we're going to need to get up over this front clip. That was the AC delete pulley that I put on there. Surprised it lasted as long as it did. Used to go through belts though. So that's going to enable us to come up. getting closer now. I need to bring this up some, I think. Maneuver this over here. One more. Ah, much better. Feel a lot safer with it down here on this level. It's been a little while since I was filming last, but 318 and 727 are over there. You can see the engine bay is empty. Ran into a little problem. So that is the driver's side motor mount, and that's one of the big block mounts, which look exactly the same as the small block mounts. Everybody says you need big block mounts to put one of these in. Well, the mounts, at least the pads, look exactly the same. Now, I'm not entirely sure. I did not take the old truck apart. My dad did. And it could have been a little different too. That was an 85. This one's an 89. But it seems like one of these mounts, the driver's side mount, should move farther forward. No, sorry, farther back. It should move about an inch back relative to the passenger side mount. And in the old truck, the one he's got, the short bed, he was able, there's a second set of holes here to move that mount back. See, there's a stud on the bottom side. Well, I took that one out and was looking. There isn't a second set of holes there in this truck. So I think what I'm going to have to do is bolt the transmission and engine together, and then of course pull the mount off of that transmission, because they're different style mounts and different cross members, and shoehorn it all in here and bolt the transmission up, bolt the transmission mount down to the cross member. And I'm pretty sure the passenger side mount there is going to work just fine. What I'm probably going to have to do is modify this driver's side mount. See where it's slotted here? I'm probably going to have to weld that up and then drill this side out here, or the slot, move the slot over somewhere in there. I'm not sure why I have to do that. Well, I mean, obviously because it won't fit otherwise, but everybody you ask that's done the 440 swap in these trucks never mentions anything like that being weird. Pretty much all they say you got to do is go from small block to big block motor mounts or pads or whatever. But we're going to give that a try. That's really all I can do. So let's get those two bolted back together and get that mount pulled off that 727 and get it put on that one. And we'll try to kind of shoehorn this thing in here and see what that looks like. Well, that worked great. Mount switched out. See, that's the new and improved style, I guess, over the old style that every Chrysler ever, as far as I know, had, with the single through bolt. I don't know why they went to that. I guess they thought it was better, or they just wanted to make it harder on people to change shit. I don't know. I know it annoyed me a little bit, but it doesn't matter. It is coming up on midnight. I am exhausted. I think I've gotten a lot done today, though, for somebody that feels dead. So I'm gonna kind of clean up a little bit and come back out here tomorrow and work on it with a clearer head. So I'll be back. I'm back. It's the next day. Still feel dead, but you can see we've got all this bolted back together. Well, I think I showed that before. I got the engine and transmission mated together. Started to pick it up, then I noticed we have some technical difficulties here with the engine hoist. This caster no longer rolls when there's any weight on it. I think that would be why. Of course, it's welded on this piece of tubing. So what it looks like I'm gonna have to do is, at least for now, I'm gonna borrow that caster off of one of my engine stands that I don't need right now. So I'm gonna grind this off, then take the one off there, then bolt that one onto here. Okay, so this is what we got. So just set this here, marked 4 new holes. And as you can see, I got this one done, and I started with a step bit here, moved on to the next one, and I've never seen this, but it actually melted off the end. I've never had that happen, but it seems like it's hard to find drill bits that aren't junk. And I was using this small one here to drill the pilot holes, and the end of it came off. So nice. But either way, 3 holes should be plenty. Test fit number 1, I guess. This will tell me what I need to change about the motor mount. And the engine hoist rolls now, so that makes it better. I have to jack this bitch way up in the air. this is where we're at now. So it's kind of sitting in there. I got the transmission cross member, or the transmission back in its cross member there. That is the most important thing that I did not want to have to change. I'm not as afraid of the motor mounts as I was changing the cross member or the position of it. Basically, right now I'm gonna jump under there and put all 4 nuts back on the cross member studs on the transmission mount loosely. And you can see we're back past the stud on the mount. I was assuming that would happen, but do you see what I see and what I think the fix for that is? Pretty sure if I take those mounts loose and move them forward, you know, bolt them to the opposite side of the casting as to where they are now on each side, I am fairly certain that they will both line up and will be sitting in the correct spot. Because like on the other truck, it had positions for the motor mounts to move back, and of course this being an 89, I guess, I don't know why, at least up until 85 they had accommodations for big block mounts, but I guess by 89 they didn't anymore. I don't know why they would have been in the 85s but and not these. I thought they were exactly the same, but we'll give that a try. So come to find out, there actually was a second hole, but I was able to move that mount back far enough to make that work on the passenger side. Now on the driver's side, I know there is not. What I'm going to do, there's a plate that mount bolts to, and I'm going to take that whole plate out and see if I can just drill a hole and move it. This mount needs to be about 1 3/4 inches farther back, and I'm going to see if I can just drill a hole in that plate and bolt that mount to it, and then bolt the whole plate back down, and then I should be able to use this mount with no issues. It has been hours, it's now dark, since I've had anything worth filming. So that mount over there, I got it sorted out. This one here was the nightmare. So what I had to do, I have a light anywhere. So I had to take the mount that the motor mount would set on, and I ended up, you can see there is the old slot that the motor mount set in. That's how far back I had to move it. I basically had to fab up my own mount. I cut a cross shape right in there so I could move that stud and figure out exactly where it needed to be. And now I'm going to pull this back out and weld it all up solid and paint it and make it look pretty or whatever, and then throw it back in here for the final time. This has been in and out of here about 15 times. I've had to pull it out and then, you know, adjust where the bolt could go, or move this, you know, make the slot bigger or whatever. But yeah, that's where we're at. And here's the finished product, giving it a nice satin black paint job. So yeah, I know the welds are terrible, but basically there was nothing here like anymore, because I had to grind so much out and cut it and whatever to find the place for that stud. But you can see where the original mount was right there in that slot, and I had to, first I went over and over more, and then over more, and then up more, and that's where we landed. That's where it seemed to be the best spot. So now throw that back in the truck. Okay, I really hope this fits. I mean, it should. It did. There was about 14 times that I installed it off camera, just double checking. So, but still, you never know. Will it go down on the mount? Just needed a little help. Finally, it is sitting on the mounts. I'm gonna have to push that bolt through. That mount is just loosely bolted on. That's probably why I also had to kind of tap it a little bit in the right direction to get it to go on. But now once I tighten that up on the block, it'll be in the right spot. See, we're in that mount and we're in the cross member on the transmission. So that was my main concern. Obviously was not so much what was going on up here, because up here, in my opinion, might be a little bit easier to adjust than back there, and having to possibly get a different length drive shaft made and whatever. Cool. Well, I don't know if I'm even going to do anything else tonight. This has been a hell of a day. I know it doesn't seem like I've done much. There's not been a lot of footage today. Just been a lot of random crazy stuff, like fixing the caster on the engine hoist. And then, of course, right when I was shoehorning this baby in here earlier, the camera died. So I couldn't just stop with a 440 and a 727 up above my head and go change batteries in the camera. That was kind of an intense moment, so sorry about that. But it is in. Alright, well, it's been a few days and I finally am feeling sorta normal, I guess. I'm sure that some of the footage from earlier probably is pretty horrible based on how I felt and how I sounded. But let's kind of go over a recap here of what we've got going on. So the motor is in. That was quite a job. Remember, I had to kind of redo that motor mount there, which, by the way, Hockey Puck rubber makes excellent motor mounts. This is not the first thing I've had to put that in. That one over there worked fine. What else did I do? Oh, I don't think I showed you, but I got the drive shaft thrown in. Yeah, it's a total disaster under here. The drive shaft is in the truck now. I also got the shifter hooked up, which, by the way, for those of you that are not aware, I found this out the hard way the first time I ever did it on a Dodge. So on like a Ford or something, the U-joints, what locates the U-joints in the yoke on the pinion, there's a little, like a tit there that the U-joint caps are held in by. On a Dodge, you actually have to put the C-clips on the caps, and then those are centered on the inside of the yoke. I'm sure some of you know that, but the first time I ever put a drive shaft or U-joints in one of these Dodge trucks, put the drive shaft back in, made it a couple miles down the road, and it immediately flung it out. And that's because you have to have those little C-clips on the U-joint caps to locate the drive shaft U-joint in the yoke. But that was a long time ago. I learned my lesson. Now I know. Now you guys know if you didn't. Let's get back on it. So I do not have all the parts I need. Thank you to the post office. A bunch of stuff's running behind. I do not have my brake booster or my throttle cable, because on these trucks, when you go to a big block, these didn't come with big blocks. I should let you know that too. I think the last year Dodge offered a big block was 78. But people obviously put them in these years of trucks like I did. But some things does have to change. It's not just a direct bolt-in replacement. You have to change the brake booster to the smaller diameter booster. I think it's a 7-inch or something, which comes in the 3/4 tons. So I'm waiting on that. And I also need to change the throttle cable. The earlier style throttle cable will work. I think the ones they used up through 87, being that this was a fuel injected truck, that was something that was different. And that is also, I believe, why the motor mount had to be changed. There's actually a kit you can buy to put motor mounts in these trucks, but it only goes up through 87. So clearly they changed in 88 when they went fuel injected. They changed some stuff and whatever, so I couldn't find anybody or any information on putting a big block in a truck this late. So maybe I'm the first idiot to try it, and clearly it was a nightmare, but the hardest part's over now, I think. I might still have to drop the fuel tank, which is going to suck. It's got an electric pump in the tank. I'm really hoping that I'll be able to pull through it with a mechanical pump and be able to just leave it there. I'm sure that probably won't be the case though, but we will see. But anyway, next up, I need to put the torque converter bolts in, or yeah, the flex plate bolts. And of course, that means you have to have aftermarket ARP special flex plate bolts. I've got a lot of 440 stuff laying around, like there's my intake also, just a Edelbrock 4-barrel I'm going to put on this thing. But I have a whole bunch of stuff. I've got high compression pistons, cams, rings, I don't know, tons of 440 stuff, because what is under that blanket is another 440. Got all new bearings in the bottom end. I've got the crank for, I don't know, I've got everything to build this motor and more. But it was supposed to go in a car I've got outside. It's set up for it. That's a whole big hot rod project. This car right here, this 50 Dodge, I haven't really filmed it. It's completely full of crap still from when I moved. But the body has actually, I've had it off of this frame, completely redone everything on the frame. It's got all new brakes. It's actually got a narrowed 9-inch in the rear with a 4-link, and it's set up for a 440. I don't know, I've done a ton of work to this car. Since I moved, I haven't had time to do much. You can see I've got 10 wides on the rear. If I'd went any wider, I would have had to tub it. But yeah, that is what the other 440 in there is for. Well, here's what we're working with. As you can see, I'm under the truck now, and I got her on some stands for safety. But we need to bolt up the flex plate. So that's what I'm working with. This great big deep sump pan definitely is making it easier to get to. But let's see if I can throw those in there. And I'm pretty sure that only goes one way. That flex plate, one of those holes is kind of offset or something. So I'll probably get all 3 of them in, besides the one that's weird, and I'll realize that it's off. We'll see. Stay tuned. Well, that wasn't bad. I just went around. I've got all 4 of them in now, just hand tight. I need to spin it around again and give them the final tighten. I guess it does go on one way, or at least one of those holes was marked, and so was the same spot on the torque converter. So I guess maybe I just got lucky for once, and I just bolted it in the right way the first try. But all I've been doing is going back and forth. You can see putting the bolts in on the back, and then I've got a breaker bar up here that I've been putting on the crank pulley and turning it, and I can watch for when those ears line up, or when it comes around to the point where I can tighten it. So now I'm just gonna turn it over again and give all those the final tighten. And then, since I'm under here, I've got other fun shit I need to do, like the transmission cooler lines need to be run up front. I'll just steal the old lines off the 318 and run them up here. Should be just fine. Since I'm under the truck anyway, I might as well do the not fun stuff underneath it all while I'm down here. Well, I got the flex plate bolts in, and I even put the fancy little cover on them. I went ahead and removed the transmission cooler lines off the 318 and got those ran up to here, but I think I'm going to have to do some changing there. This one should be alright, but since, of course, on a 318 the oil filter's back there, On the 440, it's right here, right where this line would need to run, so I need to get probably another foot or so of this flex line, and I might be able to run it out here and around and over to the rad. I went to put the starter on, which 318 and big block starters should be the same, but I was going to try to use the original one that come off the 318. That's not going to happen. It'll bolt up there, and it will actually turn the motor over. However, it hits the casting, I guess, somehow, like on the block, and I can't bolt it up tight to the bell housing, which I don't like. It would work, but I'm not going to use that. So I've got this mini starter, and it should work. However, the old style Chrysler starters should have two little studs here. So you've got the big one and then the small one, but mini starter takes this weird plug, which I've not seen on any Chrysler starter except for this one. Of course, it would be that way. So I am going to run to the auto parts store and see if I can find a plug that will fit that, and then I can wire it in. And I need to go get a few other things. I've got a whole list of stuff. Tonight I would like to get the starter in, the manifolds on, maybe the water pump on and the rad on. We'll see. I'd like to get it to where it's pretty close to running. Of course, I will not have a throttle cable or a brake booster, but if I can at least get this stuff done, then that will leave the distributor and the wiring, a few other little things before it's actually like runnable. So yeah, that's where we're at. Let me run to the auto parts store now. Real quick, I'd show you what I was talking about, how this starter doesn't fit right. So you can see the top bolt's in and the bottom one was in. I went ahead and pulled it out, but that gap never goes away. It does not ever bolt in tight up against the bell housing. So that's not going to work. I mean, it did work. It turned the motor over just fine, but I don't like it, so it's got to come out, and I will show you what I'm going to have to do to the mini starter. As you can see, the bell housing is the bolt, or not bell housing, the torque converter bolts are in and the little covers on, and I've even run the transmission lines. They're run up toward the front now, and I did a few other little things. The speedometer cable's hooked up kinda, and the neutral safety switch is plugged in, which I don't really care about, but whatever, it's plugged in. Let me bring it back up top and I'll show you what I've got to do to this starter. So this is how every Chrysler starter I've ever seen is, and this is not. So what I have determined is probably going to be the best course of action, since I cannot find a plug that will fit in that. This is the solution. So this is just the end off the old starter wire, and I put this little spade style connector on there, and that now plugs right onto the end of that plug. So now I will just splice that wire back in to the one on the truck, and we should be good to go. I might take some silicone and fill in that plug so dirt and corrosion don't end up in there. That should solve that. Like a glove. Got starter action now, which that starter sounded terrible, so cool. Now comes the exhaust manifolds and the intake. Well, here's the manifolds. You can see that's all the exhaust that's left from the old truck that it was in. I'd say you might be able to hear this thing run when it runs. Maybe not. It'll probably be pretty subtle. Here we got brand new gaskets. Yeah, sometimes it isn't a bad idea to take a flat file or something and clean up the casting or the rust and whatever on these exhaust manifolds, but these ones look pretty good. I think we're just going to run them. I'm not even going to put, normally I'd put a little bit of high temp silicone on them, but I don't think I'm even going to bother. I think we'll be just fine. Here's somebody down the road hot rodding around. Must be maybe one of the neighbors. Oh, that took some, I thought I was gonna have to get some Vaseline out to get that sucker in on that side. Man, that was a tight fit. I am lucky that I am able to put the manifolds on it now though, with the engine still in the truck. So now we need to bolt the manifolds down, and you know, Chrysler has got 5 of these special bolts that screw all the way down inside the manifold to reach the stud. And then of course there's just a couple regular studs, just like any other manifold. Well, so this manifold is on, has all its bolts. This one, while it appeared to have been on, it was not. I had to take that short little piece of pipe out because in order for the manifold to be straight up and down against the block where it needs to be, that ended up hitting the frame. So there's currently no pipe on that side, and it's going to be really fun to put a flange on there with a new pipe. My exhaust guy is going to love me when I bring in this thing. So also, I do not have all the bolts for that manifold on that side. Go figure. All I had was a coffee can full of bolts to start with, and I bought some and whatever, but do not have all of them. We're gonna kind of shift gears here. I'm gonna throw the intake back on and show you my carb that I got for this, and I think that's gonna wrap up this video. Alright, you can see I got the manifold set and the torque spec on it. Wow, look, I know I'm actually gonna torque something down. The torque spec is 40 foot-pounds. I'm going to start at probably 20. Well, we'll do like 25 or 30 first. And there is a sequence crossways. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. There we go. And yeah, I know you can lose a little bit through an extension. Calm down. It's 40 foot-pounds. I am not worried about it. It will be just fine. There we go. I did reuse this had a, what they call it, a turkey pan style intake gasket. I just reused it, cleaned up the surfaces on the manifold, put a thin layer of RTV on there just like it was before, made sure this was all clean, set it back down there. It'll be fine. I've reused those. You can use them twice as long as they're not damaged, and this intake came right off this engine and went right back on, so I was not going to go buy a new one just for that. There we go. Did that in a cross pattern. Now I'm going to come back here and hit one of the corners. Okay, now I'm going to climb in here. Get the other corner in the back. Try to break my neck. Okay, now I'll hit this corner. Now I'm going to tighten it up to 40. There we go. And we'll hit them all again. Okay, the manifold is torqued down. Of course, once that's been through a heat cycle, it's a good idea to go through and retorque those bolts. But this showed up in the mail. Check that out. Brand new 750. Demon. It's gonna look nice on there. Yeah, I like these Demons though. I know a lot of people don't, which I don't really get. They're fairly similar to an Edelbrock. I think they're great for a daily driver. Of course, like that 77 I've got out there, it's got the 625 on it. I've had a few other vehicles I've put these on. They just make good all-around daily driver carburetors as far as I'm concerned. This thing is never going to be like super high performance, or I mean, it does have a cam in it and stuff, but it's nothing crazy. So this should suit me just fine. I need to get a jet kit for it, because the secondaries use regular Holley jets, but the primaries are their own thing specific to those carburetors. So I need to get a jet kit for it. Maybe, we'll see. We'll see how it runs out of the box. If it's good enough for this, it'll be just fine. Well, I really thought that I was going to have this thing done last weekend, and then I thought I'd have it done this weekend, but life just gets in the way. Holidays, whatever. Parts, not being able to get parts. Just been busy with that too. We're back on 60-hour weeks at work, but we just wanted to say I appreciate you guys watching. This will finish up part 1. I'm going to keep working on this truck. Part 2 will come out, and hopefully next week. I needed the truck, so this should be done fairly soon because I need it. It's a daily driver. So thank you for watching. I'm going to keep working on this, but there's just too much footage to make. It will be too much footage to make one whole video, so this is part 1. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe. It helps me out a lot, keeps me motivated, helps me to be able to keep doing what I'm doing, the more people that subscribe. So I appreciate it.